Hi there and welcome to a very special episode 48 of the ADHD Adults, as we commiserate the fact that we need an entire month to raise awareness for ADHD. I am, as usual, the grumpier, slightly less musical, but actually alive, James Brown. And as usual, I'm joined by the man for whom awareness is limited to the 16th century monarchs and not, for example, to the fact that this hobby of his makes him utterly friendless, the round-headed wank puffin that is Dr. Alex Connor. Special thanks there for Nikki for pointing out we haven't used the term wank puffin yet, which is clearly an egregious omission on our part, for which we apologise. Anyway, hi, Alex.
Hello, Agus Folcha. James?
What?
Scottish. I've done Scots Gaelic today because we're doing a Scottish thing.
Can I ask how long you spent on that, Alex? I don't care anyway. How are you?
I don't even know what that means, I'll be honest.
Well, this is the point, is Alex's little niches of saying these hellos that nobody cares about, and which, in fact, I think if we look into it, probably are the point at which people stop listening. If you look at our stats, there's a lot of drop-off from episode 3 onwards, and I think people get to the point where it's like, I can't deal with him. I certainly can't. Anyway, Alex, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you, as always. And it took me a whole day to answer your previous question. Loving that the podcast numbers are still getting sillier. We can't quite understand it. This time last year, on the 9th of October, we recorded our first ever episode. And now we get letters from all over the world from so many people. And guess what?
I can fucking see where this is going. No.
That's right, James. We've sent a letter from a Robert from Kidderminster. And it says, perhaps James should focus more on local hairdresser awareness instead of ADHD awareness this October. That's what it says. Thanks, Robert. He really should. And we have been sent a real letter, though, that I haven't made up. From Dr. Paula Redmond. I asked if I could name check Paula. I've never read out a letter before from someone who specifically doesn't have ADHD. And I really loved it. She said, thank you so much for your fab podcast. I discovered it this week and have been binging. I don't have ADHD, but I work with many people, mainly health professionals, who have been diagnosed as adults. Unfortunately, in all my 20 years working in mental health, I've never received any training about ADHD, so I'm learning a lot. I also host a podcast, so I know how much work can go into it. You guys are doing a great job and a brilliant public service. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Paula. It means a lot. I am interested in the phrase, a lot of work goes into a podcast. Is this something that you recognise, Alex?
Oh, yeah. Do you know how long I spend on Scots Gaelic? Loads. And I should add that I asked, Paula's podcast is When Work Hurts. If you want to hear all about health professions and dealing with work stress, I asked. Also, James, despite you being here, our international reach has increased again. We've got to a stupid 126 countries with at least one listener. And we think that that's probably Lesotho, which I Googled.
So I have access, obviously, to all our listener stats and obsess on them. So I know you're talking utter crap, aren't you?
I think it's probably Lesotho.
Okay, well, fair enough. Go with that then, mate. Go with that then.
We're bewildered and grateful to not just our Lesotho listener, but all of our listeners. So we'd like to say a big Demalang and Kanang Gotsu, which is it hopefully in southern Sotho. It's the hopefully that does a lot of the work in that sentence, isn't it, Alex? So is there any chance we can stop this bit in the future? Because again, if you look at the drop off in our episodes after about episode 2, when people realise it doesn't get better, in fact, it gets a lot worse. It's you're the cause of that drop off. Anyway, usually this rotten pineapple at the bottom of a food recycling bin of a podcast is a tragedy in 3 parts. We usually choose a theme, and last week was about ADHD and the less difficult side of parenting or fatherhood. And it says in the script, with the terrible Jules, Alex, your brother. You utter twat. Yeah. But for this special episode, we thought we'd do a theme of kind of broadly spreading the word about ADHD, which is quite largely podcast focused because we've got some brilliant podcasters on with us who we will introduce in a minute. But we'll also talk about other ways to share your ADHD experience and help raise public awareness during ADHD Awareness Month. The 3 parts this week include 0 evidence-based stuff about podcasts delivered by arguably the worst broadcaster since somebody recorded the sound of a saucepan trapped in a mangle, Alex the psychoeducation monkey. Our personal reflections on sharing our experience of ADHD,
And then the final bit, I suppose, it is actually for once going to be top tips. If you want to share your experience, start a podcast or a vlog or a blog or a social media account, there's some top tips about that subject. And to help us with that, we've got some guests who are amazing at it. So a huge welcome to Dawn and Laura from the ADHD as Females podcast. Hi, guys.
Hello.
How you doing? This is really strange because we've watched this whole thing on YouTube and I'm just sitting here sniggering, looking at you, forgetting that we're actually here.
I know.
So
I was probably picking my nose or something.
Just sitting here like watching it, like, oh no, we're here. Great. Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. And anything that dilutes Alex down a little bit, even if it was just an empty chair with a photo of him, would make things easier for me. So I'm incredibly grateful that you're here. Not just for your expertise, but just for the fact that it's less Alex.
I am as well. I really like the fact that we have to get experts about ADHD podcasting in to tell us because we're so shit at it. We know all about you, Dawn and Laura. But can you tell our 13 listeners about ADHDAF and about use twos as well? I've gone for Scottish there.
Well, I'm Laura. This is Dawn.
I'm Dawn.
And we are actually neighbours. We live 6 doors up from each other. And we met, last year when I moved.
Just over a year ago. A year and a half?
Yeah, something like that. And in our first kind of conversation meeting each other, well, you said it first, I think. You kind of excused yourself and said something like, by the way, I think I've got ADHD. And I was like, oh my God, me too.
Because I tell everyone that I'm
So we realized that we were both thinking that we had ADHD, about to start the journey. And it was just incredibly serendipitous to be in the same street. We're both pretty much exactly the same age, one month apart. And we started listening to your podcast because we have a mutual friend, Warren.
Mysterious Warren.
Mysterious Warren put us onto your podcast, and Dawn just went, should we do one? And that was pretty much it.
Not because we didn't like yours.
Can do it.
I was about to say, I bet the conversation went, should we do a better one?
We love your podcast, obviously, and that's what inspired us.
Yeah.
But it was just more for the female perspective. And I think we couldn't find one that really shouted out to us in that sense. So we're there are so many amazing podcasts out there, and obviously we're all on the same team. So it's really just that what we are doing with our podcast, ADHD as Females, is that we are documenting the late diagnosis process and experience in real time. So a lot of podcasts, all podcasts have different angles, don't they? So some are mothers, or a lot are more hack based, and we're really we don't have a clue. We just found out that we have ADHD and we're figuring it out. I've been diagnosed. Dawn's Day is finally coming up on the 4th of October in ADHD Awareness Month, which is incredible. So that's what we're about. We're, as we say, riding the late diagnosis roller coaster, which is, as we know, a bit of a grief cycle, and it's just week by week.
Which is really lovely to hear that's how you're doing it, and it was entirely serendipitous. James, sorry, that means lucky.
It was fate.
Cunt. That's the only word that springs to mind. I'll be honest.
He knows I hate that word.
Yeah, he also hates being called. He also hates being called captain. I don't know why I don't call it him. He really hates it. So, thank you so much for that. I mean, it's a pleasure to have you on, guys, and we love what you do, and we're really proud to kind of have an association with you. You've raised money for our charity before. You put so much work in where we really haven't been asked to, and we're really grateful for what you're doing for that underrepresented population. That we know that women and people of color, generally speaking, let's face it, don't get the same support that fat middle-aged white men like we get. So we're really grateful that you've come on board. Alex, before we get into the meat of this, have you got to any of your usual bullshit at this point?
Yeah. Thanks, James. So the Merriam-Webster Dictionary describes a podcast as...
So right. Thanks, Alex. That's all we've got time for your part of the podcast for now.
Oh, thank fuck for that. I honestly didn't know.
Well, let's just not do it then. Let's ask the professionals who we've got on about there. So why don't you go first, Balloonhead? All
right then. So, right. So we've heard briefly what your podcast is about, but so how long has it been going on for? Tell me that.
So we just put out episode 20.
20, yeah.
Was it the 4th of May? I'm pretty sure it was the 4th of May was the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're doing it weekly, which, as you know, is quite a lot.
Yes. Whilst I'm working 2 jobs, going to university, and all the rest of it added into the mix, it's a lot.
It's a lot, but what's funny is, you know, we're putting a lot of work into it because we always set out to share our experiences in the hope that they would help others, and just in terms of like validation and this kind of idea that we've spent our lives sort of feeling like aliens, to then put it out there and realize that there are loads of aliens and we're all in it together is really wonderful. What we didn't really realize was quite how much it was going to help others, and that's kind of really got legs, and that's what's driving us to keep going. But it you know, it can be quite overwhelming because we really empathize with everyone who's reaching out to us, have experienced or are experiencing really similar things. So we're definitely at a point where we're trying to like help others and also help ourselves, because I think that we sometimes forget that we have ADHD. And yes, okay, I'm diagnosed and I'm medicated and it has helped me massively. This was not the question, and this is what happened. It's just like watching a stream of consciousness. It just rolls. But yeah, like as we know, medication helps with the symptoms, but it doesn't cure ADHD. So the 2 of us are ADHDAF, hence the name.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it is our experiences, and I think, you know, we were lucky enough to have some really great guests want to speak to us. For example, Clementine Ford, the legend that is, and that's kind of really propelled us off in like Australia. So it's really weird. We thought it would be this local little thing that we might get our friends to listen to or something, and actually we have a lot more listeners in Australia than we do in Scotland, and even Aberdeen is no one's listening to us here. It's again, I don't even know.
I have no idea.
I'll just quickly repeat the question. Do you want fries with that? You have answered the question.
Yeah, the Australian thing is interesting. We had a message from a Glenn in Australia just today, which kind of we've got our second biggest market, if you like, of listeners is Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And Glenn got in touch to kind of put a little bit of context on that, and talking about how it's a combination of, you know, similarities in healthcare systems, similarities in the barriers to getting a diagnosis, similarities in the sense of humor, which mean that I think that there's an element of resonating with people who were, you know, in many ways similar to us. I'm going to ask a question now, which is, we didn't start with a podcast. And I'll point this out later that I fucking said we should, but obviously Mr. completely resistant to external change and other people's opinions there just ignored it for ages.
Hello.
So why did you start with a podcast? Why was that kind of the vehicle for you sharing your experience?
Literally, as we said, just because you'd done it and we were enjoying yours. And the thing was, everything that you were talking about really genuinely helped us. Mm-hmm. So then we saw the value in it. So although we didn't have like any, you know, our lives are very different to yours, we were learning and getting so much from it that we realized that we should just be the voice of what we realized was so many people like us. You know, we are, I think the average age for a woman to be diagnosed, if at all, was 36 to 38. Isn't that right? And we were both 38. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so now we know that there's loads of us. Like, shall we speak to them, you know?
And also, I think we just both really like talking about ourselves. So.
I don't know about that, but I can't stop talking. That's true. Yeah.
I think, listen, that was clearly a loaded question because I just wanted praise from you. To be honest,
yeah. I don't know if you actually listen to our podcast that much, but if you did, you would know that I don't think there's a single episode where we don't mention you guys. There isn't one, because it is, you know, it's not just in, you know, inspiring us to do a podcast. You encourage people to use their platforms and their voices, which gave us the courage to do it. And then on top of that, you've also really welcomed us into this community. And, you know, like James, you were our first guest. Like, we really, really appreciate your support. So it is all down to you. And we're very, very grateful.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I'd say obviously more down to me than Alex, maybe. Because, it was really a passenger on this podcast, let alone anybody else's. Alex, I think you've got
not
a question
even a helpful
next.
one.
No, you're not. If you're paying attention,
I have got a question. I was paying attention. I kind of want Laura and Dawn to have a T-shirt that I don't know. Do we talk about this on the podcast? But our in-joke is that we say we seem to be really helping people, and I never wanted that. Because originally it was, we were just showing off really or messing about. Okay, because I'm the geek, I really want to know what's the hard bit about running a podcast, but from the perspective of having ADHD traits, because I know what it's like for us. How do you find it? How hard is that?
It's horrible.
The thing is, it is hard because what it is that our ADHD traits are different, and that's part of the beauty of it, is that they can marry together really well, and we can really support each other. Dawn is more technical, I'm more wordy, things like that. We have different strengths and weaknesses, but then at the same time our traits can really, really clash. So my kind of nervous energy and brain going, it makes me push quite hard and do a lot of things. And that can seem overbearing. Dawn,
and I'm like, I'm just going to run away now and hide.
Yeah, and then I feel unsupported, and it's really a journey. So we do talk about it on the podcast. The stupid thing, like when we came into this, one of the first episodes we talked about work and how we are in a place of work, and I will run in so enthusiastic, so overexcited. I will push so hard. I'll do every hour there is, and it's an unsustainable workload, and then I burn out. And Dawn, you kind of...
I just do what I need to do to get by, bare minimum.
Yeah.
and that's it. And that's how I've always kind of been. And it's not because I don't want to try and I don't want to do hard. I just can't, unless there's, like time, urgency, whatever it is, unless there's something really like pushing me, be that my boss, my manager, whatever, I struggle to stay focused and on task.
And also imposter syndrome plays a role as well, because she'll start to say, oh, well, look, she's doing all that, so she can just do that and she doesn't need my help. I'm not going to do as good a job or something like that. So actually it's the complete opposite. So we can actually get ourselves in a bit of a state, giving the opposite message, and it's just our symptoms. It's nothing. Nobody is more into it than the other or more capable than the other. It's just how our symptoms clash.
I mean that resonates so hard, because what people see or hear on the podcast, I'd like to say it's a bit like the analogy of the duck or the swan, which seems serene above the water. I mean, it doesn't seem serene above the water, but in our case, it's not paddling frantically under the water. It's literally shitting itself and spraying diarrhea underneath the surface of the water to propel
like
itself forward. Exactly like a hippo that does a circular poo, because it kind of sprays out with its tail. And it is actually, Alex, that's what happens. I used to work at a safari park. So
I actually watched the hippo pooing video this morning. I shit you not.
So that's,
to be fair, I meant I'm not literally shitting right now. Oh, actually.
But again, it resonates really hard, because what we tend to do is record in batches sometimes and change t-shirts and have a shave like I have today to make it look like we've recorded it weekly, and that's to protect us. It's to protect us. It's to protect us from what happens all the time, which is, I can't do it this week, I'm really anxious. Or in Alex's case, I'm just a complete thick idiot. I can't work the technology. I'm thick. I'm dead thick. Look how thick I am. I'm so thick. I can't do this. Can't do it this week. Yeah. So then we just make sure we kind of bank them and release them if we're having a tough time, because we're all ADHD.
Yeah.
And as you know, sometimes you'll have overcommitted to other things and have no time. Other times you'll just have mad anxiety, and the thought of having to engage in it is difficult. So that is, that resonates hard.
Sorry.
No, carry on.
I think one of the things, like for me personally, is like I'm still very RSD, and so sometimes we'll get messages or we'll have a conversation via email, a thread with somebody that's coming on or something, and I can get quite easily offended. That's annoying. And I think the thing is, I can see it for what it is, and I can step back from it, but that's quite a process, I think, because, you know, if you think about it, I've only been on meds since, was it March? Is it February, March? I don't know. But like, yeah, so it's still really early doors. So I'm getting more awareness, and it's that kind of self-inventory and awareness, but I can still just be like, oh, that's so rude, or I'll be really hurt, or even just like carrying people's problems, because the way that my brain works is I can't keep hearing the same problem over and over again, which is obviously problematic in this situation because that's what's happening. So now, for some reason, it's my responsibility to sort out the whole diagnosis process. Who the hell am I? What do I know? Who do I know? What am I going to do about it? But for some reason, now I have to fix it. It's a bit much.
It's a lot to carry.
Yeah.
It is. And I think it's important because kind of, I suppose, the broader topic for today's episode is sharing your ADHD experience. For anyone out there that is going to set up a podcast or a blog or a social media account, you will get people getting in touch with these questions. You'll get people asking for information, and it can become overwhelming. So we'll talk about this in personal reflections and top tips. So well done for that, guys, apart from Alex. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in part 2 for some personal reflections. See you in a bit.
Welcome back to the ADHD Adults Podcast, special episode 48 for ADHD Awareness Month 2022. And we're talking about reaching out to the ADHD community and sharing ideas about ADHD through whether it's podcasts or blogs or all sorts of gubbins. And we've got the special guests, ADHD as females, Laura and Dawn. Hello.
Hi.
James, will you kick us off with your personal reflections of like sharing ADHD stuff with the world?
I will and can and will, Alex. So when Alex and when I got my diagnosis, we had a chat, didn't we? And I think probably fine. I haven't read Alex's personal reflections because they're shit, and I'm sure that the guys, yours will be similar. But we realize there's not much out there actually. That you get a diagnosis, and if you're lucky, you get your medication. Then off you pop into the world. Understand yourself, tell other people what it means. And we realized that there wasn't a lot of support for either undiagnosed adults with ADHD or diagnosed adults, in fact, in terms of genuine evidence-based stuff that can help you. So we thought, well, we'll start off by doing a social media account and sharing with that very specific, it's going to be evidence-based information rather than just opinion, because as scientists, that's how we work very badly, but it's how we worked. And then we kind of touched on the idea of setting up a charity, because I've set up charities before, and I thought that actually what I would like to do in the long distant future, if we get some money, is really help people. Is not just provide information support, but kind of help people towards getting a diagnosis or coaching, etc. And that was our first bit of sharing. It was setting up a social media account and very, 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 very slowly building up some kind of following so people would start to see the information that we had. We then set up focusmag.uk, this kind of online evidence-based magazine for adults with ADHD, because we thought that what's available out there is either, this for any American listeners is not an insult, but either very focused towards American readers and therefore not necessarily in the right context for people in Britain. So we thought we'd set that up for people. And then, and I can't express how important this is that I state this, about 3 fucking months in, I said to Alex, we need to do a podcast. And obviously he didn't respond because it's an external suggestion. And
it doesn't matter who.
And we've actually, because we keep forgetting, we keep looking back and at the same time searching on WhatsApp for who it was that said it. But I think we just accepted it was me. And then eventually, it normally takes Alex between 2 weeks and 3 months to accept something that he's not kind of self-authored. Eventually he begrudgingly said, yeah, okay, we'll do a podcast. And bear in mind that we are kind of technically narcissistic, and just appearing on camera and talking about stuff that we think we know about is something that we've done for our careers. Really, it kind of makes sense to do it. And at first, obviously, we literally had 12 listeners, and that's why it became a running joke that we had 12 listeners, because that's how many we had for the first few episodes. We weren't doing them weekly; we were doing them about monthly at first, something like that.
Yeah,
and then. Exactly. And then it was kind of, and it wasn't regular. Alex always has a go at me for getting frequent and regular mixed up, amongst other grammatical errors that I make. But then it kind of built, and then it became a thing. And then we thought, oh, Jesus, okay, we need to do weekly episodes. We're starting to get an increase in listeners. We need to come up with topics that aren't necessarily just about us and things that are important to other people. So in terms of reflections, for us, it was a slow process. It was a series of decisions. If we'll start with social media, then we'll have like a website, and then we'll do a podcast. And it took us a long time to really make that decision, and then a long time for that podcast to actually get listeners. And then it took off. It took off, and then we realized that it's something we enjoy doing. We get a lot of reward from it. And then when you get reward from something, as anybody with ADHD knows or has probably read, you'll tend to engage with that activity. So as much as I loathe Alex and spending time with him like physically hurts me, I do this because actually, it's something that I know is rewarding, because there's an importance to it. So my reflections are that really we are fucking lucky to have people who listen to us. We're lucky to have people share the podcast. We're lucky to have people contact us, and we're very lucky that people put up with Alex.
We are.
I'd also say that we've never been precious about what we do. We've never wanted other people not to be successful. We've always, as you said earlier, felt that we're part of a community, and the more voices out there sharing good information, and the more people that will get that information, and maybe their lives will be changed a little bit for the better. So if you are listening to this and you think, well, I want to set up a podcast or I want to do a blog, then fucking do it. There's nothing stopping you apart from your ADHD getting in the way. So if you want to share your voice in whatever forum, have a go. If you need any advice, get in touch. Don't ask Alex. And on that note, Alex, what are your personal reflections? Probably boring.
They're mainly about Gabby. What are you drinking? What was that?
Apple juice.
It's really like cloudy apple juice.
It's cloudy. It's one of the types of apple juice, Alex. You have clear and cloudy apple juice. Are you aware of this?
I don't know
apple
what you
schnapps
just
in your country.
Saft,
sorry. Anyway, crack on.
Honestly,
with your bit.
Your German's terrible. I don't think everybody should do a podcast, James. Not Logan. Oh, Lauren Dawn. We can't reach Gabby Logan numbers, and even though obviously she's brilliant, we measure our success on a percentage of a Logan.
Yeah, but the problem is, we're still not spunk trumpeting enough. If I'm telling you, that's how she built her whole career on using the word spunk trumpet, and there's a bit of resistance from Alex. I'd change the name to spunk trumpeting with Alex and James if we could, if it would get us up to Gabby Logan territory. But anyway, Alex,
the full Logan, who won't know.
Yes, the full Logan.
So I can't add anything really to what you said, James. We started this because there wasn't anything else that fit. What we needed was like grumpy and some semblance of evidence. Like all the others were, you should eat fish oil, some shit like that, like constantly. I had the feeling that everyone else seemed to be harnessing their ADHD so they could run Google or be a famous actor or something. And I just couldn't shower properly and needed a scotch just to get through bedtime stories, and it's awful. I needed someone to tell me that it doesn't have to be a superpower. You can just try not to, just get through your day a bit. It's not being successful with ADHD is another thing to feel guilty about. So we filmed ourselves talking like that about that, and it to me, because I am risk averse, unlike James, it felt like a huge risk. Professionally and personally as well, but the response from family, from friends, professionally, it's been massive, and I'm ever so grateful. But everything James said, I concur with, except about me being thick, which because he's mean. I'm going to start with you though, starting with Laura. Tell us just your feelings or personal reflections on your podcast, which we also love, as you well know.
I don't know. Do you know, I feel really proud of us, and I feel really, really grateful. We're really grateful, and it really means a lot. I don't know. It's hard. I'm trying to find the words and not go down a massive one and start crying or something. But it's such a strange thing. Everything that's happened really, really quickly, and we really, really enjoy what we're doing. But as I said, we're still finding our way ourselves. And I think that that's something that we need to work on. But we're so grateful to be sharing this journey with so many people, to hear that we're resonating. I think it's quite hard sometimes when you're talking to you, when you're hearing back from people and you know, you can see yourself in them, and we're all so similar. It can sometimes be quite confronting, but it's a really, really special thing. And I just hope that, long may it continue. And hopefully, you know, with more awareness, there will be change, or at the very least, you know, if we can have more understanding, not just like in the ADHD community, but just at large in the community, then we won't, if people understand more about ADHD, then we're not going to hopefully get to those points of being so depressed, of feeling so inept, you know, all of that stuff that we're trying to unlearn, a lifetime of feeling bad. Maybe with more awareness, if nothing else, that might ease off a bit. So we're happy if we can at least be a part of that, you know. That's I don't know if that answers the question at all, but that's what you got.
It does, and it's nice to hear those emotions, and we would love you to feel free to be able to cry on this, because it's great for our metrics.
I don't. James tried to make us cry last time.
I tried my best, but failed.
It's not hard.
Ding.
And thank you again for not pointing out the fact that I promised. I said I'd come to Dawn first, and then forgot after like what was it, 12 seconds?
That's fine, because she's kind of like helped me figure out what I'm going to say a little bit. So, you know.
Dawn, focusing entirely on you. Go on. What's your personal reflections of the ADHD as Females podcast?
Well, yeah, it's been a journey that I obviously don't have a diagnosis yet, and this has kind of been something for me to lean on whilst I'm waiting, and so it's been super helpful for that. Like, there's also that fear that, you know, once I do get this diagnosis, well, my assessment that they tell me I don't have ADHD, and then it becomes ADHD as frauds. But
which is never going to happen.
But can you imagine? But I think I would have struggled a lot more without this. So for just on a personal level, doing this has been really supportive, and having you alongside me, supporting me, has just been extremely helpful, because I would have just been alone. And hearing all of our listeners and people messaging us and coming to us makes me not feel alone. It's like I've got that sense of community now. And so knowing that I'm getting that help and being able to give that help to others is just like, you can't put that into words. It's just, an incredible feeling, I guess. And it's like, I don't know, I feel like we've got something, and I just don't want to stop. And it's been a help for me, and, you know, just the ability to help one other person, like either that's struggling with a late diagnosis or who's younger and isn't really sure what's going on. And if they can get through life without the self-loathing and hatred that I've had to deal with my entire life, then, you know, that's our job done. So, and we already know we've done that. We've helped people, and they've told us that if it wasn't for our podcast, they wouldn't have gone for a diagnosis. And like, this is where I start crying, and
I'm just trying so hard not to butt in. It's killing me.
But so that's about it.
That was lovely. Thank you for sharing it. Long may your podcast continue, and hopefully the more and more people that listen to it, particularly who might not enjoy the shit that we do and maybe would resonate more with something that's of a different flavor, the more people listen to it, the better. Because
different flavor of bullshit.
I didn't want to say better, you know, fundamentally. But the more people that find that support, every single person that collectively we and anybody else that puts content out there. So again, for people as part of ADHD Awareness Month, if you want to share your experience, you know, as long as you do it in an appropriate way, and remember that everybody's ADHD is slightly different. So as Alex said, some people genuinely feel it's a superpower. Many people really, you know, see the second D as disorder. As long as you're not saying this is ADHD, and if you don't agree with me, you know, you're wrong, then you're going to help people. Alex, is your hand up, or are you just holding a pen very close to the camera?
I forgot we had a camera.
Fuck me. Right, on that note, as usual, Alex has changed the script to say no time for the game today, but he's talking shit. So if you're happy to take part, guys, then I know he's not gonna pick laptops, but there's two options, Alex, and it's laptops and washing. So which are you gonna pick?
Yeah, for washing, please, James. Yeah,
washing, what a fucking surprise. Right. So there are three options, and Laura and Dawn, you get to go first. So this is about forgetting something about washing, and it happened this week. So the first thing is, this bit's definitely true. I get what I call fat crabs, which is itchy fat, basically. And because Mrs.
Fat
ADHD,
crabs?
Fat crabs, yeah. I'll say. So because Mrs. Because Mrs. ADHD buys plant-based and very kind of responsible detergent, I think it gives me fat crabs. So therefore, I bought my own non-bio picture of a baby on the bottle washing liquid and softener. So I now do my washing separately. That bit is definitely true, but the questions related to washing are: A, did I, now my washing is separate, completely forget to do all my washing and therefore have no underpants, working or otherwise? That's option A. Option B, did I do some washing, but leave it outside for 4 days, so it went through a dry, rain, dry, rain, dry, rain, dry cycle? Or did I in fact forget to buy more of my washing liquid and softener, and I've now got fat crabs again? So Laura and Dawn, you can go first, as a team or individually, and pick an answer that you would like to.
I feel like you're sitting too comfortably to have fat crabs right now. I'm not an expert on this.
I've not seen any fat crabs itching going on over here.
I think, both are very plausible, but I quite like the thought that he's got no pants. So should we go for A?
I want to say B.
Okay, I'm A, she's B.
Okay, Alex.
Well, you're both wrong, because it isn't. It isn't no pants, because there are no pants big enough for James.
That's a compliment, Alex, in many ways.
Oh, it's just because of his arse.
Good caveat, mate. Good caveat.
He can't have left them outside for 4 days because he lives in Briley Hill and they'd be gone in an instant.
He used to live in
So
Briley Hill.
It must be that it's washing liquid, and therefore he's got all full of fat crabs.
So first thing I'll say, obviously I'm delighted that Alex is wrong, but in terms of Laura and Dawn, the correct answer is I left washing out for 4 days because I forgot. Yay. And it rained and then got dry and then rained and then got dry and then rained and then got dry and then rained, and now I finally managed to get it in dry. So well done, Alex, for getting it wrong.
Well, I went for that one because I've done similar on various occasions. Yeah, so
I think
how long have you left you? Leave it in the washing machine so it stinks all musty.
Oh yeah,
I do that as well. Five days, sometimes longer.
Yeah, exactly. So on that brilliant note, congratulations on anyone other than Alex getting a point. I reckon you're down in the 20% now. Well, you've got like one right in the last 5 goes, something like that. On that delightful note, we will take a break and we'll come back for some top tips on sharing your ADHD experience. See you in a bit.
Shit game.
What's happening?
Welcome back to the ADHD Adults podcast.
What happened then? What?
It's just trying to annoy you.
Oh, brilliant.
2. Welcome back to episode 48 of a special episode of the ADHD Adults podcast for ADHD Awareness Month. We have the fantastic ADHD as females, Laura and Dawn, with us, and we're going to be doing, for part 3, as always, top tips on the theme, which this time is sharing nonsense about ADHD. James, you share nonsense about ADHD. What's your top tip?
Obviously, the problem is I know you're going to say this as well, so I'll save it till the end. We always talk about using your authentic voice, and that means being who you are. So the reason Alex and I act like this on the podcast is because this is how we act in real life. We are no different if I'm taking him to Sainsbury's because he's forgotten to buy himself food, or if we sit down as we did in the old days and talk about work. It's just non-stop giving each other shit. So find your authentic voice. However you like to communicate, make sure you use that to communicate what you want to about ADHD. Importantly, if you're going to do something like a podcast or anything where you have a partner, don't be impulsive, and make sure that you choose a co-host who you won't look back and regret your decision about. And then the final thing I'll say is I think we need to collectively take Gabby Logan down. So maybe we can do this as a crowdsourced effort that collectively a whole group of ADHD podcasts can knock Gabby Logan off a perch. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, it's a good idea. We want to get the full Logan, don't we? I would say definitely partner with someone who knows how to edit a podcast. I put that in not as a joke, James. Genuinely, I wouldn't have the first clue. James does all that for us. And I would top tip: don't tap your computer keyboard making notes about the next podcast episode when you've got a guest on and 100,000 people are fucking listening. That was embarrassing for me. That's it. So this time I'm gonna go to Dawn first. Dawn, what's your top tip for podcasting or communicating ADHD out there?
I have no idea.
I was somebody who could do social media.
Oh yeah. That was it. It was my top tip is to pair with someone that can do social media, because otherwise it would be a mess. I am so bad when it comes to social media, spelling mistakes. I just put posts up and then I check them. Like I'm incapable of checking things first. It's like go, get it out there, and then I'm like, oh, need to correct that, this, the other, and not just that. It's the when to post, how to post, what to post. Like, I don't have the first clue, and I thought I was quite savvy on the old social media until this one came along, and I'm like, oh wow, that's how you do it. So work with someone that knows their shit about social media, because it's super important to get your voice out there and to be heard. And no one's going to come and listen to your podcast. We're quite
lucky because James does the Instagrams and I do MySpace. So
oh, bring back MySpace.
I've been doing our Bebo page.
Thank you for that. No, it's a really good one. It's that same thing we're all doing, isn't it? About look for your complementary skills. Coming to you, Laura. Sorry, last.
Do you know what?
I'm not going to say least.
It's basically the same point. It's play to your strengths. If you can identify the things that you're good at and the things that you're bad at, make sure that you can, if you are partnered up with somebody, that you can communicate and that they're a trusted person. I mean, I keep turning up at your house and bawling my eyes out. That's my new trick, isn't it? That's fun. But you need to be with somebody that you can feel supported by, that you can offer support to, and you can play to your strengths and lean on each other and all of that, and remember to do that. Basically, but also, and if you're going to do it on your own, or even if you're not going to do it on your own, realize that it's quite a lot of work.
Yes.
And like try and have some structure to it, which we still haven't mastered. But that's my next goal, is to try and be like, this will be a podcasting day, this will be whatever, because otherwise I basically just do it all day, every day, from the minute I open my eyes until I go to sleep, and that's a bit much. So
that's really helpful advice. Okay, we're going to finish off with a product recommendation, which is very relevant to this, and that is a good quality microphone and possibly headphones. The audio on some of our podcasts, I'm sure Alex would agree, has been less than high quality. So we purchased Yeti microphones. That's what I'm using. Alex isn't, because he broke his. So Alex is using a slightly less quality microphone. Or is that a Yeti? I thought you broke it.
No, it's my Yeti. Yeah. No, I didn't break it. I fixed it. Turns out it wasn't plugged in.
This just gives you an idea of what I'm having to work with. This is the material I've got. The clay I have to mold.
And the other time, James, it was plugged in, but I'd got it turned round so the directional mic was away from me.
For fuck's sake. Okay, but yes, product recommendation, get yourself a good quality microphone. So that was our slightly meta episode 48 of the ADHD Adults podcast to kick off ADHD Awareness Month. And we had our amazing special podcast friends, Dawn and Laura from the brilliant ADHD as Females podcast. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having us. Very, very surreal. And we tried our best to be well behaved. I hope we did.
It's just so bizarre being on a podcast because obviously we get to decide which parts stay in and which parts go out.
Oh, it's all staying in.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Including Alex's pathetic introduction to part 3. I'm making sure that stays in. So thank you for that. For anybody listening, if you enjoyed, again, unlikely the podcast, why not support the show on the link? Because otherwise Alex is going to have to paint his head green and advertise garden peas for bird's eye. If you've got any questions, get in touch via ADHD at ADHD Adult UK on the socials. Until next time, see you later.
Bye all.
Bye.
Bye.
Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 big klaxon. Trigger warning, klaxon, 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 klaxon.